friends, welcome. I'm Lorenda, psychiatric nurse practitioner. Thank you so much for stopping in. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a YouTube friend. So, today we're going to continue on with our talk therapy series that we've been doing. And today I wanted to talk about something that all of us experience at some point, but most of us don't always slow down long enough to understand. And this is the idea that behavior is a language. And I'm not only talking about our own behavior, but the behavior of the people in our lives. So, in our relationships, so our partners, our friends, our family members, but even our coworkers. People will say one thing with their words, but sometimes they say something completely different with their actions. And many times we miss this. And it's not because we're naive, it's really more because we're taught to listen to words and we're not really taught to listen to behavior the same way, which is really important to do. So today we're going to talk about that language. So we communicate not only through our spoken words, but through body language, the way we hold ourselves. We communicate through tone, through facial expression, through our movements, even distance, like how close we get to somebody, how far away. Like, do you walk ahead of your partner? Does your partner walk ahead of you? Or do you walk side by side, right? So how we approach each other, like all of these things are behavior, but they're also all communication. Words are really nice to hear, but they don't mean anything when they're not aligned with behavior, right? Behavior is the true commitment. This even goes true for friendships. A friend doesn't have to show up perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, because none of us show up perfectly all the time. But they show up, right? So when someone repeatedly minimizes your feelings, they disappear when you need support, or they treat your vulnerability as like a burden, that is their behavior speaking. So even if their words are saying, I care about you, oh, I feel so bad for you, I'm praying for you, I'm hoping everything is going to be okay, but they never show up for you, believe the behavior, right? A good friend, checks in, listens, respect your boundaries. A good friend is able to celebrate your wins with you, right? They're not disappointed because you won. They're not worried about what they didn't get, right? They're happy about what you got. They're showing up and they're showing you who they are. And, the same holds true even in family, right? So family dynamics can be very complicated. And the truth is, sometimes people love us deeply, but they behave in hurtful ways because of their own pain and their own trauma or their own emotional unawareness. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does sometimes explain why the behavior happens, right? But the key to it all is recognizing what patterns are theirs and what you're no longer willing to carry. That's it. And only you can make that decision. Now, we can't talk about behavior in the sense of only other people, right? We also have to talk about our own behavior, because everything that happens isn't always only about another person. We have to always take our own accountability. So we're going to flip the lens a little bit and talk about our own behavior, because our behavior tells a story even when our words don't. So things like shutting down, right? Sometimes we just shut down, and that's a sign that we're overwhelmed. Irritability is a sign that we're anxious. You know, people pleasing, which is something that I did for a long time. It took a lot of growing up and a lot of learning for me to be able to see it and put a pause to it, right? So, but people pleasing, that's a sign that we're afraid of conflict, right? We're afraid that the person might leave. We're afraid to say no. Pulling away from people, that's a sign that we don't feel safe. When we overthink, it's a sign that we don't trust what we're being shown. Over explaining tends to be a sign that we've been misunderstood or dismissed in the past. And when we ignore our own behavior, then we start living out patterns that we don't understand. So you have to be able to stop and take a pause and know that your behavior is trying to tell you something, right? So it's not just other people's behavior, it's our own behavior also. So, we hear a lot about red flags, green flags, right? So let's kind of break these down a little bit, right? So red flags in behavior is, sometimes we want to say a single action, right, is a red flag. But that's not necessarily it. Red flags are more like continuous, right? Inconsistencies. So when somebody is inconsistent, total red flag. Hot and cold patterns, and that kind of goes along with being inconsistent. Like 1 minute you're hot, 1 minute you're cold. Being dismissive. People who blame shift, right? We love the term gaslighting. Same thing, but it's blame shifting. I only did this because or if you hadn't, I wouldn't have done this, or you know what I'm saying, right? Um, or people being silent when things are really important, broken promises, disrespect. Disrespect is the ultimate red flag. Emotional unavailability. And the next big red flag is a lack of accountability. Um, so when people are doing these things, that's not a maybe. Those are big messages being sent to you, right? And remember, the words go along with the actions. The words go along with the behaviors, right? So, green flags, things that you want to accept, right? So, consistency, so important. People who do what they say they're going to do and say what they do, the best. That is behavior and words coming together and speaking the same language. And that is ultimately what you want. You want behavior and words to be speaking the same language. So, look for people to follow through. Effort without being asked. That emotional presence, respect for boundaries, vulnerability, kindness, accountability, reliability. Now, none of us are perfect, right? None of us are going to do everything perfectly all the time. It's just not going to happen because we're human. But it's about the consistent message, right? What are we showing and doing on a regular basis? These green flag behaviors, that's emotional maturity, right? That's where you get that genuine connection and safety. I have this friend, and we've been friends since like third grade. And she would always tell me what she wanted in a guy. And it would always be the things, we talk about this all the time from the time we were young. And I'd always tell her, hey, these aren't really the things that you should be looking for. And, what she was concerned about was, do they dress well? What kind of job do they have? How do they wear their hair? Right? Like, these are the things that she was looking for, and she was confusing being attracted to certain physical traits as green flags she was looking for in a man. And, bless her sweetheart, no judgment, because listen, I've been divorced twice, but, she is now on her fifth marriage. And it's not a happy marriage, right? So we have to really put all of this stuff in perspective. And it seems so small and, well, of course. But the truth is, we get caught off guard all the time, and we're not actively thinking about these things, and we have to. So let's go back to behavior. I'm getting off track. So how do we listen to behavior, right? We need to make sure that we're paying attention to not only what someone says, but what they show, right? So it's simple. You ask yourself, do their actions match their words? Do I feel safe with their behavior? Do I feel calmer or more anxious after the interactions? That's a big one. If someone leaves you feeling anxious, big red flag. Does their behavior support the relationship or drain it? So important. Ask yourself these things. And your body knows the truth long before your mind wants to accept it. So listen to it. Listen to your gut, right? So what do you do when a person's behavior and words don't align, right? So when someone's behavior confuses you, you need to take a pause and you need to observe, right? You don't have to immediately confront them. You don't have to argue or defend yourself. Just sit back and watch. Right? Sit back and watch, because inconsistency will reveal itself. Patterns reveal themselves. Truth always reveals itself. And when it does, you get to respond from a place of clarity, because you've taken a pause and you've stepped back and you watched. So then you get to respond from a place of clarity instead of hope or of fear, right? And, sometimes the answer is setting a boundary. Sometimes the answer is pulling back your energy. Sometimes it's changing your expectations. And sometimes it's simply walking away. You are the one who will know what is the right action for you. But at the end of the day, listening to behavior, it puts the power back in your hands because it enables you to fully understand the whole picture. So just when something doesn't feel right, take that pause and listen to the behavior. Do the words and the behavior mesh together appropriately, or do they conflict with each other? And if words and behavior are conflicting, you need to tell yourself, okay, I need to pay attention to this because there's a problem. I would have saved myself a whole lot of grief in life had I done this a lot sooner. But now I'm a big girl and I know better. So, anyways, what I want you to remember though are that words are what people want to be, and behavior is who they are. Let me say that again. Words are what people want to be, behavior is who they are. And remember, this is not in a judgmental way. This is in an honest, grounded, emotionally aware way that we pay attention. And you learn to understand the language of behavior, and then you stop accepting confusion. You know, we don't want to negotiate with potential, and we don't want to ignore the truth that our nervous system has already picked up on and tried to tell us. Because we all deserve relationships. We deserve relationships where the behavior matches the word, where the safety matches the tone, where the consistency matches the promises, right? We all deserve to have that person, and we also all deserve to be that person, right? Because you're not going to have what you can't be. So, all right, well, listen, I hope that you guys have a blessed and beautiful day, my friends, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.